Ramadan Kareem. Hey, Sister Kenyatta. Ivette, great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. And so we began with these conversations. I hope you could hear Jody and Lumumba talk about the conditions that we're looking at, what's happening in our prisons and jails, why we have to do this work. And you're actually doing the work. So Justice LA has been at the forefront of doing several different things, but most recently, you've been working on decarceration in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Can you talk about that work? And then I want to get you to the lawsuit as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to. First of all, thank you so much for having me, for sharing this platform with Justice LA. BLM has been such a great partner and leader here in Los Angeles, so happy to be in community with you all. I want to start off by just piggybacking on a few things that I heard from Lumumba and Jody, which I think are super important in the context of Los Angeles. So there was a talk about low-level versus serious convictions, and I want to point out that here in Los Angeles, folks with some of the most serious charges, with some of the most serious convictions, with some of the most serious mental health needs have been diverted out of the jail system through the Office of Diversion and Reentry for many years now at success rates of over 80% compared to folks that are spending time in jails without any services in the community who have an over 90% recidivism rate. So already, even before COVID-19, we saw that there is strong evidence that community-based services help support folks even with the most serious charges, even with the most serious needs. In Philadelphia, they decarcerated a jail, and without any of those service infrastructure that we have in Los Angeles, and violent crime went down 3%. So even without services, we know that people being in their communities with their family support are able to have the necessary tools they need to not harm their communities. So that's just baseline. So I'm really glad that that conversation was lifted up. Another piece that was lifted up was the need for DA accountability. I know Black Lives Matter has been at the forefront of holding Jackie Lacey's feet to the fire around all of the harms and neglect that she's been leveraging against her community. And so really grateful for that. And as I go into the discussion around the lawsuit, I'm going to really focus in on why DA and judicial accountability is ever more pressing. So Justice LA has been doing a lot of work leading up to this lawsuit around decarceration. So earlier, we were able to defeat jail plans. So one for a mental health jail that they tried to sell as a mental health hospital, which we defeated as well because we knew it was a jail by another name. And then the women's jail that they were trying to build out in Lancaster, where we knew there was outbreaks of valley fever. So when we're talking about like medical neglect, this is a long-standing tradition here in Los Angeles. As early as 1996, the Los Angeles County has been under investigation for medical neglect, and over 1/3 of the cases filed by prisoners against LA County are for medical negligence. And so this has been a long-standing tradition here in LA County of really attacking our community members on the outside and on the inside, and our most vulnerable community members. And those that are suffering the most from medical neglect, surprise, surprise, folks inside of our jails. Black women inside of our jails and prisons that have been subjected to forced sterilization who aren't believed when they say that they're having a biomedical or mental health need. And so this is just a continuation of all of that. So for Justice LA, we've been advocating for the release of folks that are pre-trial, specifically under the zero bail order. So what the zero bail order is, it's an order that was issued by the Judicial Council, which is the governing body of judges for the state. And so they issued this order back in April and said, folks with misdemeanors and low-level felonies need to be given the opportunity to have zero bail. So I think it was Jody that raised how money bail is super harmful, especially for Black women, which bear the brunt of paying these bail amounts to release their loved ones. And so this is reducing bail to zero is a huge first step. However, we're seeing that the DA and local judges, the Superior Court, are not exercising the zero bail order and enacting discretion that they actually shouldn't be enacting. So over 2,000 people in LA County have been identified as eligible for release under zero bail, yet because of the DA stifling the process, they've only released a little over 100 people. Great, you're good? Okay. So like I was saying, over 2,000 people have been identified for release under the zero bail order. A little over 200 have been released. This is specifically because DA Lacey is stifling the process. And she talks out of both sides of her mouth, as we've all come to know. And so even though she's publicly said that she supports the zero bail order and that she believes that the local judges do not have discretion over this order, in implementation, actuality on the ground, her DAs are actually asking for higher bail. And so this is just yet another example.
So they're asking for a higher bail.
Yes, yes. And of the 2,000 people that have been identified, they're saying that most of those folks should not be eligible for release. And we're seeing that the judges, this LA County Superior Court, is complicit with the DA. So they're also stifling the process. And they're naming things like folks not having housing as a reason why they shouldn't be released, which is a complete disregard of all of the economic disadvantages that folks are facing. And like Jody pointed out, specifically black folks in Skid Row that have been economically divested from for so long, and yet because of that economic divestment, they're being prevented from having their freedom when they haven't been convicted of anything. So those are just some of the ways that the judiciary is complicit with the DA. And I want to point out that most judges that are holding seats are former DAs. They are just cops in suits. So it's another perpetuation of a system of cops being legitimized in order to incarcerate more of our people. But I'd like to get to the
and there's a lot more.
I know we're short on time.
Yeah. So if we could get to the lawsuit really quickly and then just call to action, what can people do?
Sure. So Justice LA, in collaboration with our members, Dignity and Power Now and Youth Justice Coalition, filed a lawsuit a couple of weeks ago against LA County and the LA County Sheriff's Department for medical neglect. And one of our plaintiffs is Rodney Cullors. He's the uncle of Patrice, who I'm sure you all are familiar with. He's a 58-year-old man with hypertension, with heart problems, with spinal damage that prevents him from walking. He has to be in a wheelchair. And yet he is being incarcerated in these horrendous conditions, which are exposing him to COVID-19. Both Jody and Lumumba talked about our elders and like the risk of exposure to our elders. These are the folks that are being exposed to COVID-19 right now. Pregnant folks. There are at least 10 pregnant people inside of LA County jails who are currently being exposed to this virus. And so we're calling for the release of all medically vulnerable folks, of our elders, of the entire pretrial population, because folks that are not convicted should not be denied their right to freedom. And there's a few ways that you all can support. So you can support by donating to the Mama's Day bailout that is being led by our partner organization, SE Justice Group. We're trying to bail out a mama this weekend. So please donate. We're almost there. So that's one tangible way that you can support. Also, you can amplify all of our campaigns. So we're demanding that the county test everyone inside the jails who wants to be tested. The mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti, announced last week that he was making tests available to all LA County residents that want them. The first folks that these tests should be made available are folks inside of our jails who are being exposed to these horrendous conditions. So this is just some tangible ways where follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Justice LA Now, and you could hear about our campaigns and ways to plug in. One last way to plug in that I'll leave you all with are text banking. We've been mobilizing text banking and phone banking 3 times a week with the support of our partner organization, White People for Black Lives. If you all want to plug in, email at justicela at justicela@gmail.com, or send us a message on Instagram or Twitter, and we'll plug you in.
Great. And can you drop all that in the chat, Ivette? I'm so thankful for your work and for your constant struggle on behalf of our people. I'm